All right, we are live. This is ProPresenter Power Talks. My name is Sheik, and with me, as always, is the great ProPresenter Poppy, Steve Dirks. Steve, what is up?
What is up, man? Dude, where have you been all my life? It's like I just saw you a couple days ago.
Yeah, well, in order to answer that question, first I have to say to our viewers, for those of you that have been watching us for a long time, you may have asked yourself, why
For
why didn't
seven
these guys
days.
show up
For like
on
seven
Monday as they
days.
normally do? Yeah, yeah, 7 days. Why are these guys not popping up on Monday? And it's because I am at the Children's Pastors Conference in Orlando. I had to travel all the way to Orlando from where I live, which is just outside. But here I am, and man, we're having fun talking about church visuals with children's pastors.
Yeah. Yeah, we apologize, guys. We said last week and we didn't realize that Shake and I would be in Orlando setting up for the conference. So Monday was crazy, and then
Yeah,
yesterday was the first day of
right.
the conference. So it just got crazy. So we'll try to be better about that.
Yeah,
And, we last week was kind of our first run. We're getting into this. And so hopefully over the coming weeks, we're going to be better about letting you guys know on church visuals, like when we're going to be going live and kind of scheduling that out better. So sorry about that this
right.
week.
And
Hopefully you can catch it. No, you go ahead. What's up, man?
uh, so Steve, it's funny because at the booth that we have here at Children's Pastors Conference, we're running material on ProPresenter, and some of what you talked about last week helped me set up ProPresenter because I couldn't figure out how to display to work. It was showing up in the little preview, showing up on the TV, and then I remembered that Steve said that there's more than one display. So that's what helped me to finally get things working. So if it wasn't for the ProPresenter Poppy, who knows if we would have been successful at all
I'm glad we
here
did
at
that
Children's
training
Pastors
last week so that we
Conference.
could train you what to do. You got it. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Why don't you tell everyone
And here we are back again.
tell everyone what this conference is down there in Orlando, which one you're at, and what you guys talked on
Yeah, of
yesterday.
course. Yeah, so we're at Children's Pastors Conference, or CPC. This is a conference that happens every year in January here in Orlando at the Coronado Springs. And the conference itself is about empowering kids ministry leaders and children's ministry people, and give them resources, and equip them with what they need to do ministry, like hands-on stuff, but also have them feel encouraged and empowered, not only with resources, but also emotionally, spiritually, all those things. Um, and we are here talking about the importance of using visuals in a kids church, in a kids church environment. So church visuals is here. Carl is here. We taught a breakout yesterday that was all about using visuals in the kids ministry environment, and how to do that as effectively as possible, how to do that without losing the one-on-one aspect of ministry as well. All those things are important. So that's, Steve, that's why we're here,
Absolutely, man.
just here.
I
Yeah.
saw some cool shots of you guys in a breakout with a bunch of people, so that's really cool. So yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. As we talked through the breakout, there was one point at the end that we encouraged people who want to learn how to use ProPresenter. We encourage them to watch this show, ProPresenter Power Talks, and learn from the magnificent ProPresenter Poppy himself.
I'm digging the name. The name might stick. I don't know about magnificent, but my beard, but magnificent. But yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, guys, really, I mean,
If you hear,
hopefully this is helpful to you. And so, like, we're not trying to make these super long every single week, but we're trying to provide you with helpful
right,
tidbits of information that hopefully will serve and empower you. Things that I've learned, that Shake has learned over the years in helping manage media. Like we shared last week, the first couple of weeks, we kind of thought we would just kind of dive into some intro stuff with ProPresenter. So last week I kind of covered like the layout so that you're not freaked out, like what does this look like when I open it up. This week and maybe in another few weeks, we'll kind of do some intro stuff, some basic stuff. And then we'll probably throw it to Shake. here in a few weeks to kind of maybe teach me some stuff of like what do you do to help make stuff look good as a video guy, and then like how can we incorporate that into ProPresenter? So him talking about some things, and then us working together on like how can you implement that well in ProPresenter itself. And so yeah, and then as we go, like we love for you to interact with us either in the comments. You feel free to email us. At the end,
Yeah.
we'll drop an email where you can email questions, comments, feedback for us. We want this to be a community where we can hopefully, as we get going here, uh, really like help serve you. So if there's topics we want to cover that would help serve you as a community, we want to do that. But we really just want this to be a way to give back to your church, your ministry, and help empower you to take the visual content you create or that you get from us or that you get from other places and execute that well on a Sunday morning. So that's our
Yeah.
heart. That's why we're doing
Yeah.
this.
And I was thinking too, as we were doing our breakout yesterday, that ProPresenter is such a powerful tool, and I think in order to be good stewards of this tool, it's incumbent upon us to learn how to use it. And learn how to maximize it, because one of the things that we talked about in our breakout is that the reason that visuals are important is because the gospel is important,
Mm-hmm.
and communicating the gospel effectively is important. So that's why we do what we do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Sheik, you want to dive in on today's
So
topic?
yeah,
So
yeah. Steve, what are you going to say?
have you ever had to import a video into ProPresenter before, Sheik? I mean, in your experiences now, have you ever had to do that?
So importing, that's where
This isn't a
you're
trick
like,
question.
you need a product and
Yeah,
it's in another country. Oh, yes, I have.
the
Yes, I have imported.
Okay, this that wasn't a trick question. The second one, have you ever had a
Okay.
video import? Now, raise your hand if this has ever happened to you. You've imported a video and it automatically loops on you, and you didn't
Okay.
want it to loop.
Yes.
Yep, yep, yep.
Yes.
Uh,
So many
yep.
times.
So today I want to
And
help.
especially in kids ministry,
Yeah.
we play like worship videos.
Yep.
And so sometimes you're in this
Oh,
worship
we're
moment and
worshiping
then the
again.
song starts over. It's embarrassing.
It's what a beautiful maid
Yeah.
times two.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, so today's discussion is hopefully centered around helping you managing your media, and so that's kind of what we're going to discuss here for the next little bit. So I will share my ProPresenter screen, which y'all can see. That is that good? You seeing
Yep.
that? Sweet.
Yep. We see it.
Cool. So last week I didn't have anything built in the presentation. So this week you'll notice if you followed along last week, you'll notice this week that I have got a library built out. I've got items that I'm looking at here in the center. I've got my outputs, which the church I'm at, we run the church I'm helping. I run a couple of different screens. So I've got multiple screens here. I've got stage displays. So there's a lot of complexity here, and we can dive into in future, maybe in future, down the road in the next coming months. If you guys would be interested, I'd be happy to show you some of the intricacies of this and talk through that. There's a lot of cool things happening here. But what I want to talk about is what we didn't talk about was the media library. So we talked about everything kind of here, but this media button will take you to open up your media library. And one thing that's different with 7 than 6 is that you kind of have the ability now to organize your library very similar to the way you would organize your library up here of content. So you have folders. You can have folders with items in it, and then you can have playlists within that. And what's different with 6 and 7 is 6 had the background library and then the foreground library. And you were kind of, then you could have some like smart playlists and all that. But now you actually have the ability to really put whatever, like a playlist can have backgrounds and foregrounds in it. So it can actually get a little bit confusing if you don't know how to kind of read some different things, because if you don't know what you're looking for, it can just look like, oh, I've got my media in
Oh,
there.
wow.
I don't know what it is. Yeah. So
Right.
like, for example, what I like to still do is kind of organize my library out. So just like up here, I have folders. I would suggest to help you and to help your volunteers still organize your content. Maybe even to start, you have a foreground library and a background library, and then you kind of keep those going. But as you get going, you can kind of start to differentiate. And I just always know that my worship backgrounds I'm going to set to loop, and then I always know that my service videos I don't want them to loop. So I kind of have a system here where I kind of organize stuff out into different sections so I can easily grab the items that I want to grab. But a couple things that would be helpful for you to know here is you can add and create playlists, which is these items right here, folders, which is these large scale items that you can put playlists in, and then smart playlists that are routed to a specific spot on your server or a specific spot on your network or on your computer. Just know that those are like, in the sense, smart. They're constantly updating. So if you remove something out of that folder, it will remove it out of there. Um, yep.
So it's like it's automated.
So it's kind of automated. Um, and yeah, it works it works best with, something on probably your computer or a drive that's always connected to it. I've tried it a little bit at church on that with like a Google Drive system, and it's not really as dependable as I'd like it to be. So yeah.
Okay.
Again, in here you have some settings, like just like up here we have this little, setting down here where we could change how we look at stuff. You can do that
Mhm.
here, so you can do a list view and see duration information, format information, all that listed here. Or you can also do the thumbnail view. So you can set that however you'd like. You can increase the size of your tiles to look at what's on the screen, or you can decrease the size of your tiles to look at what's on the screen.
So Steve, the the fact that you see the word playlist in two different spots, those are separate realities, all right? That's they each mean something different. Is that
Where do you see it in two different spots? You mean here and here?
so there's playlists beneath the library,
Uh, yeah,
and then there's
yeah.
playlists in the media.
So yeah, so there's a playlist for your content, and then there's a media playlist, which is different. Which
Okay.
is different. Content
Okay.
from your media playlist can be within any of your playlists up here. So for example, these
Okay.
slides are part of my pre and post content down here. So
So
those are
the
brought
media
in from that.
playlist almost the media playlist acts almost as like a bin.
Yes, yes, yeah. And it's
Okay.
just the way to organize your media into different bins. Yeah. So,
Sure.
Sunday content, I have special events. I might have a prayer service, State of the church address that we made graphics for. Like, you can put different bins together and organize it. It just allows you to kind of keep things more organized um, than it has been in the
Okay.
past. And it's easier to do that. So, yeah.
Sure.
So within the playlist, you can click on items and trigger them right from there. You can also drag items to specific elements. So if I want to drag a background to a song, I can do that from here, and it'll take that song as you have it here. So if it's set properly here, then it will take that information into that drag that you pull here. Now, if I drag it though into here and I change some settings on it, so if I change, the intro dissolve rate on it to be 2 second dissolve, and I slow it down, that will not be reflected because that was done after I pulled it. So it's now only reflected
Oh,
on
okay.
this piece of. If I then go here, it's going to speed it up and go back to the revert. So I
So
just
then if
wanted to
you
keep.
drag and drop from media, if you drag and drop from media to a playlist, will it have the settings that you updated or the original settings?
Yeah, so if I change here, the settings to be, transition of 2 seconds, and if I wanted to color shift it to something crazy,
Whoa,
which
wait, you color
we can
shifts
get
like
into
that?
all that. Oh yeah, bro. We'll get into
Yeah.
that in a later session. That's a sneak peek. So
Wow.
when I click on that, that took those settings to that drag up there. So
Yeah.
when I click here, you'll see that. So so
Sure.
yeah, if you make edits here and then drag, that'll save your settings. If you drag
Okay.
and set, and then you start to make changes and modify, then it will not be reflected in the library, the playlist. So,
Got it.
yep. So so this is kind of like where you see all your media. Importing media is there's a couple of different ways to do it. You can either go import, file, import media. Sorry, and when you import media, now you can go and look at if I wanted to import our ProPresenter Power Talk situation, I could do that right here, and now that's imported. So you import the media using that, or you can also use this plus button down here and hit from Finder, and that will now open up your Finder where you can bring media in as well. Now, I personally use both one of those options the most. Um, and in
Okay.
previous, I don't know if you remember six, but I don't know if your youth group ever did this, but you would drag a file from the desktop to ProPresenter
Right.
instead of
Yeah.
importing it. I don't know if you ever dealt with this, but it would then, if you ever deleted that off of your desktop, it wouldn't work. I don't know if you ever dealt with that, but if you did, that was something that happened a lot. And so they fixed that with ProPresenter, so you can actually just go and drag media to the library, and it will actually
Okay.
import it. I personally still just am always leery of it, so I kind of have never gotten past that. But you can do that, and from everything I've tested, that is actually importing it into your library. So then, if you were to delete that off of your desktop, it's not gone. So, so I
Okay.
always just like the plus button and Finder and finding my items. I also always really enjoy. I also really kind of gravitate to this, but you can drag and drop from the desktop to your item right there. So that's how you get items into these different playlists. So the key thing I wanted to share today, and this is I think really helpful, is with ProPresenter, it's important to know how your media is coming in when you import it, because that will really set you up for either success or failure. So I want to show you guys the settings tab, and this is kind of going to start to get more in depth and show you even more settings and stuff you can tweak. But if you hit the ProPresenter menu and you hit settings and you go to import, that'll open up this window. And you'll notice there's a bunch of
Okay.
different icons. There's a bunch of different settings here. But you can also hit Command comma will open up
And
that window
comma.
as well. hmm That's a shortcut. So the reason I want to show you this is one thing that I think if you set this the way that you want and you know this setting exists, this will save you probably hours of headaches, or at least multiple times of videos not playing the way you want headache. So if you're at all like Sheik and I, and you've ever had a video loop on you that you didn't want to loop, or you had a video that didn't loop that you wanted to loop, it's important to know how you set up your library, because ProPresenter allows you to set default settings for how you import media. So whenever you hit Finder, the plus button down here, and you hit Finder, this is the setting that it's reverting to when I import that file. And the settings are, you can set it to scale. So if you want it to always scale the item to fill the screen, you can do that. I don't always suggest that, because if you have a really, small thing, it'll really pixelate it out. But you can scale that specifically to what you'd like. You can set the image to always be, if it's importing an image, a JPEG or a PNG, you can set it to always be a background or a foreground. You can set it to time out at a certain time. You could set it to go next if it's a background. I don't always suggest that. I always set this as a foreground because I want images to come in as foregrounds. And then video is the same way. You could set the behavior to be foreground or background. You can set it to be stop or loop, which I'll set it to loop. And that's actually not what I would do. So I just did that there for you. But if you did that, this sounds great, right? You're like, oh, foregrounds, backgrounds, or loop. Okay, let's do backgrounds and loop. Well, that's great, but here's the problem. On Sunday morning, when a sermon's happening, and the sermon's probably not happening, hopefully, if you're getting a video request. But minutes before the sermon, someone comes in and wants to show a video during the sermon, and they bring you a flash drive, and you import that video. If it's set like this, when you play that video, it's going to loop because it's automatically set to bring a video in as a background and loop the video. So I always
And what's
suggest, good.
Steve, what's the difference between a foreground and a background element?
So a background element allows there to be content in front of it. So like text information
Okay.
for other foreground props, all that stuff can be in front of it. So if you look here over on the right, you see all these little icons. These are actually layers
Yeah.
in ProPresenter. So the background layer
Okay.
sits in this area. Well, what's in front of it? Slides, props, messages, uh, audio. Like there's all these layers in front of it. That what that means is that the background just keeps running and stuff in front. So if you don't import it as a foreground, that video can be playing, and then if you hit on a text thing, then it'll keep playing the video and put the text on top of it.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're
Interesting.
playing like a
Okay.
bumper video, you don't want that. So like for me, I always set my videos that are feature elements like that to be foregrounds because I don't want them to be backgrounds. I want them to take over what's behind it, and I set them to always stop. So these are the settings I would set: is foreground and stop, hold the last frame, and don't go to the next slide. Is what I would do. And that means that every
Okay.
time I bring a video in, it's always going to be stopped, foreground, and it's going to hold on the last frame. It's not going to do anything else unless I tell it to. But the reason that's important, and this is why I said for you and your ministry, whether you're in kids ministry, student ministry, or adults, you need to figure out what is the best option for you. Because for me in adult ministry, the best option is that. But maybe for you in kids ministry, you are having trouble with people remembering to loop the backgrounds, and you don't ever have last minute videos added for the service. You have last minute backgrounds added, and maybe you need to set that. But knowing how that is set is huge because then if you're training your team or you're ever doing something, oh, I'm like for me, I always know that if I'm bringing in worship backgrounds, I have to make sure that I set it to loop and I set it to be a background.
I
So
guess that's one of those things where if it was set the way it is, then you just, if it's consistent, then you know what you have to do. As soon as you import something that you want to make a background, because your workflow is set, you can do that. Whereas
yeah,
if you're not setting it, you just kind of never know.
yeah, and that's what I think the issue is that sometimes we get into pro, we don't know the setting exists, we just roll and we kind of forget about it, and so then stuff like catches
Yeah.
us off guard. But if you know what you're doing and if you know how these settings are set, then you can tell your team, hey, remember this weekend if you import any videos, make sure you set it to stop and make sure you set it to foreground. Or when I'm training teammates, like, hey, make sure you have to set the stuff to be backgrounds and set it to loop. So yeah, the way you get to that setting again, just in case you forgot or in case I went through that too quick, you can go to ProPresenter, menu, settings, and import, or you can also hit Command, comma, and that will bring that up, and you would be set to make those changes that you would like there. There's lots of other settings that we can get into at a later point in time, but this is kind of like mission control for setting ProPresenter up the way that you want things to work. And so I use a lot of this. There's a lot of really cool, awesome settings that you can set up within this menu, but this is kind of the advanced section of ProPresenter.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's great. It's nice to know that you can set something like that and kind of create this sort of consistent experience within ProPresenter.
Yeah. So it's just knowing, and that's what I always told people is as you're training your team, you want to set the standards that you want as a team, and then have everyone
Yeah.
trained to that. And so that's
Sure.
one of those things, along with some other things that I usually always teach about, is you decide what you want those settings to be, and then communicate with everyone so everyone's on the same page. If things are left vague, people don't know what's going on, and it's hard to see what's happening. Now, there are some ways to see what's happening in ProPresenter. So if you look in a playlist, you can see little icons over here,
Yep.
and that icon denotes a foreground. If I were to change this by clicking on it and hitting background, you'll see that that icon goes away. So you
Okay.
can see
So if
some
the
little
icon is there,
icons.
it's a foreground.
Yeah, and if it goes away, it's a background.
Okay.
So you'll notice all these backgrounds don't have that icon, but they do have an icon with a little arrow that's flipped. And what that means is what you probably assume is that's a looping background. So that's a looping background that's going to continue
Okay.
to loop at the end of every single time
Right.
it goes. So so you can see some things there, but I always just say it's really hard to see that small little icon. And for people to know offhand, that's what all that stuff's communicating. So having your system set is going to help you. Yep.
Sure. And Steve, why would somebody run ProPresenter from their playlist as opposed to the bin, the media folders?
So I run from the playlist usually because if I'm in a setting that I have a rehearsal and I have stuff set, then
Hmm.
I bring all my media into my playlist, which I'll show you guys here. So I'll map out my service with all the content in placeholders, and then I'll just scroll through. So then on a Sunday, I will close the media library and I'll just run through my content that I need to
Okay.
run through. So it's all set up,
Yeah,
it's
sure.
all ready to trigger, it's all ready to go. Um, you might be asking this because you probably, as a kids pastor, you may have run it from the media bin, right? At times,
Well, I have done both.
right?
I told you last week about how I sat behind Kerry Job's ProPresenter guy, and up to that point, I'd been running everything from the bin. But then I saw him running through playlists, and I was like, okay. Now this was a previous version of ProPresenter, but that was a game changer for me.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of it really can go either way. I think the playlist is really helpful because you can use the space bar. It's really easy to make the commands, so I can go through a song, and I always tell people in a song when you're leading worship as a pro presenter guy, you want to be using the space bar. It's the biggest button on the keyboard.
Hmm.
It doesn't go backwards; it only goes
Right.
forward, and you can't miss where it is, even if your
Hmm.
finger's off the center a little bit. So, and you can pre-program all of your media to fire on at different
Right.
points in the song, so then you're not worried about that. If you're trying to like
Yeah,
fire slides and then go down and fire media, it gets really tough.
and I remember too that in the bin, it you you can set the order in which everything is laid out, but you can hit a button and then all of a sudden everything's alphabetical or something like that. Whereas in the playlist, you set it and it never changes.
Right. So you can set the list here, and you can set it to be alphabetical or sort it by,
Hmm.
you know, duration or whatever. But you can also set it to like format the layout you want. So if you want to move these
Yeah.
slides around, you can do that as well. Um,
Right.
so yeah, you can do that. I always just have reverted to doing it in the playlist.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's
Is what I stick to, and just kind of
I
how I
like the
have it set.
consistency. I like the
Yep.
consistency of the playlist because I remember there were times where I would set things up in the bin, but then somebody hits that file name button or name button, and all of a sudden my setup is gone.
Right. 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 Yeah. So as long as if someone is knows how to delete stuff out of your bin, then you're in trouble anyway. But if they don't,
Yeah.
if you pull into a playlist, then it doesn't matter if someone takes that file and puts it in another, you know, bin or whatever, because it's
Yeah.
tracking that
Oh wow.
file. So
Yeah.
that's why I always do that is I can move stuff. It protects me a little bit of like, okay, that file was
Right.
dragged in and it's there, unless I go delete it out of the bin on the back end or hit delete, move to trash. It won't do that.
And
So
and that's almost like best practices, like there are certain things that you can do, but there's better ways to achieve that same thing.
right. So another thing that would be, you know, just as we kind of like get ready to probably wrap up, deleting content out of your bin.
Mhm.
There's a couple ways to do that. You can right click on the media and hit delete. And when it does that, it's going to give you a message. It's going to give you two options. It's going to say delete the queue or move it to the trash. Deleting the queue will
Yeah.
only remove it from the ProPresenter program, but will leave it in the folder on your computer. Deleting it and moving it to the trash moves it from the playlist and the file from the hard drive completely and puts it in
Wow.
your trash. So one thing that the reason that's important is if you keep hitting delete queues and you over the year or two are downloading media, downloading huge pieces of media, you could max out your hard drive because you're actually not deleting it from the hard drive. You're just deleting that queue
Oh,
in the app. You're not deleting it out of the folder itself.
okay.
So I
Yeah,
always
that
move
makes
to
sense.
trash when I'm deleting something and I'm done because I actually want to move it to the trash and then empty it from my trash in that situation. Yep.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Steve, you
So
did it
hopefully that
again. The
helps.
ProPresenter Poppy.
Hopefully that helps you in some way. I know that I kind of had to get a system because I had that burned me, 7 or 8 years ago, a
Yeah.
couple times. So I was like, okay, what do
Yeah,
I
yeah,
do to
that's
fix
helpful.
this and not have this happen? So
I can't wait to try that stuff in the booth here.
I know, man.
You
You
know?
can set stuff to loop and set stuff to stop. It'll be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because we are running stuff out of the media bin right now, and I was trying to get each file to move forward by itself, but I
Yep.
guess it doesn't do that from the bin. You have
Doesn't
to be
do
in the
that in the bin.
playlist,
You gotta create a playlist. So
right? And that
create
now it
create
makes sense
create a
because we get
presentation
to
in the
the end.
playlist. And,
Okay, all
yep.
right. So look at that.
Yeah, you got it. Look
You
at
blew my
you.
mind
You got
again,
it.
Steve.
You got it. You got it.
Wow,
You got it.
right here. And, I had to drive all the way here to Orlando from just outside Orlando to learn that. So that's a big deal.
I know. That's a huge deal, man. I
Wow.
appreciate you driving all
Yeah.
that way. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's for the love, the love of what we do.
no, but it is love of what we do, man. Like some of that stuff
Yeah.
seems very small, but that's one area. I don't know if you've ever been in one of those services where that video loops again. It's distracting. It's a mood
Yeah.
killer in that moment because it's like, oh, I'm hearing the baptism video a
Right.
second time, and then you're scrambling,
Yeah.
your volunteer scrambling, trying to shut it down. So um,
Ah,
it all
yeah.
goes
Those
to
moments
helping
are
you
just,
visually communicate the gospel. So
yeah. Right. And creating an that is completely cohesive
right,
as opposed to like cringy.
yeah, yeah. Distraction full or distraction free. I like distraction free.
Right. Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, why don't you tell them, man, how they can get in touch with us? How
Yeah.
can the people?
So listen, if you have any questions for the Pro Presenter Poppy or for me, if you want to ask me something, I
Well,
can answer some stuff as well.
you
You
should
can
ask
send your
Sheik
questions
first.
to Pro Presenter. Yeah. Yeah. You know what? You're like the end boss,
No. Sheik knows
ask
more than
me if
me.
I can't,
He just is flying under the radar. So
well, you know what? I can
we
neither
should
confirm
tell
nor
people
deny, but
we should tell people that you do know, like you're not completely novice, so you do know your stuff. This is not just
yeah, yeah. Well,
this is just
I use ProPresenter as a creative.
right.
So for me, if my content was good, then it almost didn't matter how I use ProPresenter.
Right.
So it's nice to hear kind of the technical aspect of it and see how you can maximize it. Like we were saying
Right.
earlier. But if you have any questions for us, you can message us directly on YouTube, or you can reach out to us at propresenter@churchvisuals.com and let us know how can we best serve you.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, man. Well,
Yeah, yeah.
dude, we did another one. So I think next Monday we'll be both at our place, so we can go next Monday
Right.
for sure,
Yeah.
and we'll plan
We'll be
to
back
go.
at our regularly scheduled time that all of our long time viewers are used to, you
Yeah.
know?
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, like uh, like the Kelsey say, the 92 percenters.
Mm.
subscribers. No, just
Mm,
kidding. We don't have 92% subscribers yet. So, but yeah, you can subscribe to the Church Visuals channel and be notified
right.
when we're going live. So, shameless plug. So,
Yeah, hit that bell icon,
yeah, yeah. Look at you. Hit that bell icon. Get notified when we go live. Look at you.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Ding, ding,
Well,
baby.
man, this is awesome. We'll wrap it up,
Yeah.
and we will see you guys next week. If you have any questions, let us know in the chat. We'll check in on this video throughout the rest of the week or over the weekend. If you have any questions, hit us up, and we'll see you guys next Monday for another ProPresenter Power Talks.
Mm.
You got any
Peace
parting words?
out.
Peace out. Nice.
Yeah, here's a parting word. Thank you.